we're able to put basically put a gooseneck on the front of that and a Jeep on the back, and then the crane is able to kind of transport itself.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of The Crownsman Show. This is episode 45, and today we are joined by Krystal Dieleman. She is the owner of TransWorld Manufacturing Company. TransWorld Manufacturing is the company between the crane manufacturer and the crane operators. In this episode, we will discuss the design, engineering, and manufacturing of their specialized boom dollies, spreader bars, engineered lifting beams, spreader bars end cap, and outrigger mats. But before we get started, we would like to thank our sponsors. Power Zone Equipment. When you need a specialized team of world-class engineers for your oil and gas pipelines, dewatering, or any fluid handling needs, you want to visit Power Zone Equipment. In addition to their inventory of rebuilt pumps, motors, engines, they also have an amazing team to design and engineer your systems, no matter the challenge, no matter the location. You can visit them at powerzone.com. Get in the zone with Power Zone. Lamson International. Lamson International is a third-generation family-owned and operated heavy lift and heavy haul construction company with branch offices located throughout North America, Canada, and Australia. Lamson International offers conventional crane rental, heavy transportation, project engineering, and customized rigging, steel and timber mat rental, as well as marine and manufacturing services. They were founded in 1946 by Neil and Billy Jane Lamson. The company is in their 73rd year of doing business. You can visit them at lamsoncrane.com. Whipware. Whipware's photo analysis software systems help industries from mining, quarries, aggregate, forestry, agriculture, coal, and explosives remove the need to use manual sieving techniques. Their technologies have saved clients millions in energy costs, maintenance costs, process optimization, quality control, lost time injuries, equipment downtime, and quantitative decisions. And you can find out more at whipware.com. Now, let's get on with episode 45 and Jared and Krystal Dieleman.
Welcome back. We're already on episode 45. We are pumping out the episodes right now. Everybody's at home, and so we want to share lots of content, keep you connected with the industry, so that's what we're doing. Today on the show, we have from Las Vegas joining us, the owner of TransWorld Manufacturing, Krystal Dieleman. And so it's going to be interesting because we've had crane companies, we've had heavy haul companies, but then what TransWorld is doing is they're doing design, engineering, and the manufacturing for the heavy lift and haul industry. So thanks for coming on the show, Krystal. It's good to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
I have to ask, this might air a little bit after, maybe things will be a little bit back to normal by the time it does, but what are things like out in Las Vegas right now? I mean, we've seen the pictures from there.
Yeah, everything is locked down. I mean, as you can see, I'm at home.
Yeah.
The strip has never before shut, and it's closed right now. It's very strange, actually.
Very crazy. Yeah. So even local, is it shut off? Like, is the strip, are you even allowed to go there, or how does that work? Do you know?
I mean, you can drive by it, but there's a lot of cops. They've had to board up the casinos because, I mean, they've literally never closed, right? Like, I read something like one casino didn't even have a key because they've never had to lock the door. So they had to get a locksmith.
It's like the old janitor from 40 years ago. They had to find him. That's hilarious. It's probably true. Yeah. I mean, I guess they never close, right? Like ever.
Never.
Yeah.
Never.
Wow. So, it's funny because you're a third generation in the heavy haul industry. Didn't your company or your father's company or something actually put up the Stardust sign or something like that?
Yeah, my family built most of the strip. I mean, my grandfather started the first crane business here in Vegas in 1948. So
Wow.
We've been involved in some of we've built Vegas in one way or another.
Not a lot of people can say that. You said there's some pictures on your Instagram. We don't usually do it, but what is your Instagram handle for the company? Do you have a company one?
Yes. Yeah. It's called TransWorld MC.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Company.
We're going to steal that picture off, the Stardust picture off your Instagram and get that so the audience can see. That's pretty cool. And so for you then, now you go into the design, engineering, manufacturing, you come out of that business. What sort of made you go into that? Was there an opportunity in the industry that you saw that there was a demand? Why did you go into the manufacturing side?
Definitely. I mean, my family had always built everything we needed to mobilize our cranes, to do, special lifting. And we started doing that back when we didn't know anyone else that did that. And then just over the years, like people started contacting us to buy, specialized trailers like the boom dollies we make or spreader bars, let's say. And then it made sense to make it like a standalone manufacturing company.
Right. Yeah, I've seen some of the pictures. There was one that's it's a tank, and I'm not obviously a lift expert, so we'll bring it up on the screen and the audience can see it. But it's basically it looks like an older picture, and there's just looks like a giant tank, and then two lifts on either end. That was by your company or your family's company?
Yeah, that's a transportation system we built in the 80s, and what you're looking at is actually an autoclave, which is something used for gold mining. I don't even know what an autoclave does, but they're really heavy. They weigh 700,000 pounds.
I should know.
Yeah, I know. Right? Yeah, find out next podcast. Yeah, we had to figure out a way to transport it. The picture you're talking about it was for the time, it was quite a feat.
Yeah, you'd actually had experience when you moved into this and you're having your own company. You'd had experience and you knew about the manufacturing side already then.
A little bit. I mean, yeah, because my family had like a crane rental business, and we did some heavy haul, and that's kind of like the environment I grew up in. And we made what we needed, and then people knew we made that, and they would buy it from us here and there, but it wasn't ever its own business.
Oh, I see. So then you really put it into its being its own company then.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun because instead of doing crane rental projects here, which are fun. I mean, as a manufacturer, I get to talk to crane people everywhere, which is a fun thing to do.
Yeah, originally I think you were going to be on our show. Sorry, scraping on the mic. Originally I think you were going to come on our show and try to coordinate it with another event you were coming to in Vancouver or something, I believe, right?
Yeah. I was supposed to do this in June with the Crane Rental Association of Canada has their annual, well, they were having their annual meeting in Vancouver this year, but I don't know if you've ever checked out a crack meeting, but they're a lot of fun.
Well, what I'm doing is I'm hinting for an invite. That's how we do it on the show.
Yeah, whenever they get started again.
But you've traveled quite a bit. Or you've been over. You mentioned before the show. I think PEI you've been up to as part of that. What is that organization? Just quickly.
The Crane Rental Association of Canada is just an organization of crane owners in Canada, essentially. Canada has their own organization. The U.S. has one. It's pretty international. And between the two, I do travel quite a bit throughout North America. Last year, I got to go to Australia for some high-level crane meetings. So I can't complain. I mean, it's a very
interesting industry. Yeah, I'm kind of fascinated by the heavy haul industry because it's excuse me, got a tickle. It's very interesting because it's one of those industries that touches so many, right? There's municipal, mining, energy, all of that. And I want to understand with you on the manufacturing for sort of putting, you're designing, you're engineering, you're doing the manufacturing. Who is your actual customer? Whose name is on the check when you sell a product?
Normally, like the crane owners, so the end users, people that buy cranes and rent them.
So they bought them from a manufacturer then?
Right, but we do work closely with the manufacturers, and sometimes we do sales through the manufacturer or maybe through one of their dealers or maybe through a broker. So we have to work with everybody. But generally the person that, operates the crane is the person that, purchases the boom dolly.
So what's happened? So a couple different scenarios, and just to clarify, is you would either a manufacturer knows that you can build this specific is attachment the right word for that?
Well, yeah, we're talking about boom dollies right now. So
Right. Yeah.
that's like a trailer that goes on a crane boom. If you put the boom over the back,
Yeah.
it spreads the weight of the crane over more space and more axles. Because here in North America, we have different bridge and weight laws in every province in Canada and every state in the U.S. And in Europe, where most of the cranes come from, they can run at 12 tons an axle, and that's what the cranes are
Oh.
designed to. So then when the manufacturers make these cranes and they sell them here, they're like, you guys figure out, we didn't make 63 different sets of laws on how to
Oh,
drive
I
around.
see. Right.
So so they're like, we're going to sell you the crane, and then you need to figure out how to get it from point A to point B, essentially.
Because you're dealing with laws. So you're dealing with laws by state, by province, if you're in Canada. So the end users, they bought their crane. Now, of course, the crane manufacturer, they have their specs, but then the municipality or I think do you have the Department of Transportation in the US? Is that the right one?
Yeah. So, and
Then,
yeah,
but
and
then,
every state has their own.
right. So then
So,
you have to, if they've got to get it across multiple states, you have to then design something that is good for each state.
right. Yeah. So somebody will call me and they'll say, I bought, a specific type of crane. And then I will say, well, how do you have that configured? I mean, because cranes, like just like when you order a car,
Yeah.
they'll have different, wheel sizes and drives and different options, hydraulic jib versus a manual. I mean, all of it changes the weights of the configuration.
Yeah.
And so once we figure out how that crane is configured, then we ask, what states, this end user. It might be, there's some crane companies that work, throughout North America, and there's some that maybe work within 3 or 4 states, and then we kind of pick the most strict one and work backwards from there.
Oh, I see. Yeah. No, and I'm just curious, this my own curiosity on this one. But when you started the company, I think you started 2015, is that right?
Yep.
When you started that, did you anticipate all that? Had you already had some experience in all that, or did some of that dealing with all those from state to state in Canada, province to province, was that sort of any surprise of what you had to kind of go through just to get the crane across those lines?
No, I mean, we knew what we were getting into. And the reason that, this was one of the reasons that it is a viable business is because, in Las Vegas, we're less than 30 minutes from the California border. And California is one of the most strict states as far as
Hmm.
bridge and weight laws in the United States. So, back in, starting the 60s, we had to, we knew that if we can figure out how to mobilize our cranes to and from California, that we'd have a competitive edge. So that's what we do. And so that's when we kind of figured out how to make things work in California. And then, it should work through most of the West and, well, most of the US. So.
Did so are you dealing, I'm just curious, when are most of those when you're the specs are obviously going to come from the manufacturer, the customer has a need. Is it pretty clearly laid out what those to get across the lines like it for do they have it all covered? Like in California, is there somewhere where you go and you can actually read through all that information and you know exactly what you need to do, or do you have to adapt as the projects come at you?
Oh, I wish that. I mean, most departments have the information on a website, but
Hmm.
it's so complicated. I mean, every place has their own fun way of calculating what's allowed and what's not allowed.
Yeah.
I mean, California is kind of nice because at least when like you weigh a crane out, they have a very specific method for doing it. You have to
Hmm.
get jump scales, and you put, the jump scale on the outside tire, not the inside tire, and you re-level the suspension and you take the weight. Whereas in other places, you kind of like drive over a scale, stop, and then drive forward a little, stop, and it's like, well, that's sort of
Hmm.
weighed out. I don't know. It's, I mean, it's very, and the way of, there are some places that, between one axle and the next, they can only be within, I think 10% of the weight or something. I mean, it's all across the board as far as what's legal and what's not legal in different places.
Wow. And like you said, then you got European cranes coming over, and they're just essentially going, well, here you go. Here's the crane. Now you figure it out. So it's all
Right.
that component of it as well. It's very interesting actually to me, because I mean, transportation is I mean, it's a key factor in a lot of people's companies. So that you're sort of right in that line of getting these projects underway. I wanted to clarify what all are you covering? You said about the boom dolly. So can you give sort of a broad range, sort of a recap of what that is, the boom dollies, and sort of the size range and things like that you're building?
Right. Yeah. So a boom dolly is primarily used on all-terrain cranes, some truck cranes, so mobile cranes with wheels,
right?
Essentially, and then to add more, to spread the weight out over more space. So a lot of like the smaller cranes, maybe you don't need it, right? And then up until probably the largest dollyable crane is 7 axles, up to 200,000 pounds. I mean, it just depends on how you can break the crane down too, because there's parts that can come off the crane that can go onto another trailer. And some you're allowed to leave on depending on where you are. Some cranes have like pressurized cylinders that like push down on the dolly. There's so many options and configurations for all of it.
So to get the boom dolly there, you must be then delivering that. So the crane lands, let's say it's a European crane, it's coming on, it's getting shipped over, it lands at a port, and then you're bringing the boom dolly to the port. That's the system, I would assume, or are they breaking the crane down, they bring it in pieces to you, or how does the logistics of that work?
Oftentimes, we'll deliver to a port. Sometimes they'll deliver to maybe the customer's yard, or maybe the manufacturer has a yard here, like through a dealer or whatever. It just depends on what stage the crane is in, right? If it's brand new, like they want to kind of go through it after it's gotten off a boat and make sure everything works. But if it's a used crane, then it'll just be moved from one yard to another, essentially.
Right. Yeah. So it depends if the new or used, and I want to cover a little bit about bars, beams, mats. Just quickly, just what are they? What you offer in that segment?
Yep. So we do a lot of spreader bars, and spreader bars are also really varied, right? I mean, you have these little like, telescoping bars that kind of open in and close up a little bit. Also to kind of displace the weight of whatever you're picking up to pick it up in a more even fashion, let's say.
Yeah.
And then we make all the way up to like the big spreader bars, like for concrete tilt-up construction.
You put a picture of those in, right?
Yeah, I sent you one.
Yeah,
it's 45 feet long, and from eye to eye, so 45 feet, it'll lift 100 tons. From one single point. So it's pretty cool. I mean, it's so big. It was hard to even just get it all in the picture, but.
Yeah. So you're building. So there's a crane assembly, and then I'm sorry. I know it's sometimes tough for the people I'm interviewing because I should know these things. So which is the part in this picture? This is the big, tall white crane tower, right? Now, which is the part that you're building? Is that piece on the bottom? That sort of.
That the triangular piece on the bottom is what we built. That picture I sent you is us load testing it. So we had to proof test that to 125%.
Right.
From the single point to make sure that it'll be able to lift what it needs to lift.
Okay, and then the mats. What is that?
Those are just outrigger mats.
Yeah.
So everybody, every job site has its own ground pressure bearing requirements, and basically, if there's a box underneath the ground or a sewer or something, and you squirt your crane's outriggers out and you try to do a maximum pick, those outrigger pads are only a couple feet in diameter, and so oftentimes you're required to put some type of wood or steel mat underneath that, so you don't just poke through the asphalt or wherever you are.
So out of all your business then, the boom dollies, the bars, and building the mats, is it all pretty even, or do you have sort of a primary where you sort of thrive as a company?
We definitely spend a lot more time on and crane transportation with the boom
Yeah,
dollies, and we have some other products in development that we're working on getting out to the market. Like for instance, a lot of, like I said, you can dolly cranes up to 500 tons, give or take, depending on the manufacturer, the configuration, where it's going, all that. But beyond that, I mean, cranes are getting bigger. The things they pick are getting
hmm,
bigger. It's becoming more and more common to buy a 600-ton crane. I mean, is mobile. That's
crazy.
mobile. That can drive around.
Yeah,
And for something like that, you actually have to launch the boom off the crane carrier onto another trailer. So
right.
we've got like those are called boom launches, and they're like a
Oh yeah,
hundred
I
times
saw that.
cooler. Yeah, they're like
Yeah,
100 times cooler than boom dollies because you don't just like connect it and drive. You actually have to launch it onto another special
wow.
trailer and then launch it back onto the crane when you're ready to do work.
So you're actually designing and developing the boom launch right now?
Yep. Yeah, we've been working on it for a couple of months now, and we're working on kind of like a worst case scenario, like the heaviest boom with all of the,
Right.
the boom cylinders, Y guys, everything on it. And we're working back from the most strict place we can find, so it'll be able to work through most of the United States and Canada.
It must be pretty satisfying. You're starting a company in 2015, so it's a very new company, but to be able to work in these types of projects, that must be quite gratifying to see that. Just being such a new company, already developing. I think you've got, uh, I saw a note here, I think it's the lightest on the market, correct me if I say anything wrong, but you've got a new boom dolly that's lighter than anybody else has and things like that. Is that I mean, what is that? You're always looking for something new, something better. Just is that just the way you approach things?
Yeah, I mean, we want to make the best products possible, right? I mean, we were end users, like we were who we're selling to. So we feel we have kind of a leg up in that sense. But for a while, it became apparent that if we were to able to, create a lighter product, this is an industry that's obsessed with weight, right, in one way or
Yes.
another. So if we were able to create a lighter product, we were able to like legally transport cranes in certain areas. So I sent a picture where we were able to legal some new crane models in the Pacific Northwest, which is, also a very strict place. There's a lot of bridges.
Yeah.
So we were able to, help those customers by being able to offer them a boom dolly solution rather than having to remove the boom from the crane in order to
Right.
mobilize to a job site. So just, over 7-10 years, it saves them a lot of time and money.
Right. And now, do you get business from? Is it one of those things that when you build, you have the lightest boom dolly, and so you have that set up. Then do you find you start getting referrals just from people knowing someone that knows someone that worked with you? Are you already starting to see that at that 4 or 5 year point in the company?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's kind of a small industry, there's only so
Hmm.
many crane enthusiasts on the planet, but it, we all find each other, we all get to know each other. So that's one of the things that's a lot of fun about it.
The other one I wanted to talk about is I'm going to take a crack at saying it's Schnabel systems.
Yes, yeah.
Is that the what that I feel that you said something about there's actually that's sort of a historical thing for you from your family, but now you're sort of bringing it back. Can you explain? I never even heard the word before, let alone know what it was. So can you just from the ground up, can you talk about what that is?
Yeah, well, so fun fact, I recently learned that Schnabel in German means like mouth or beak. I've all these years I've heard the name Schnabel and I've been like, what does it mean? But it's like, how did we come up with this? And I just learned that like a week ago. So,
Good timing.
yeah. But yeah, it's neat because you can take. So this is for a different type of crane. It's for a rough terrain crane, and they typically have like really large wheels that aren't road legal. So normally, how those cranes are transferred, you drive them up on a trailer and then
Right.
you pay somebody some people have their own heavy haul, but some people actually have to contract that out to get their crane to the job site.
Yeah.
But we're able to put basically put a gooseneck on the front of that and a Jeep
Hmm.
on the back, and then the crane is able to kind of transport itself uh, around. So you
And
kind
you
of
don't
so
lose
you
all that
lose.
height,
Yeah, you
right?
lose exactly. You lose the height and the weight of the trailer bed. And it's also, it's like one of the most unsafe times, right? Is when you're putting something on or taking something off of the
Yeah.
trailer. So
Yeah. Why is this not? I haven't actually seen a lot of these before. Is there a reason they aren't more popular, or do you think they're going to become more popular in the market as you start to release them?
yeah, they're pretty rare right now. We're working on some ideas that'll make them more popular because it makes a lot of sense in certain situations to use that. Um, so I don't know, we'll see. I mean, I think my family started building them in the early 90s. Um, and just, for ourselves, for a couple other people. And like, we're still in touch with those people and they're using those systems daily almost still. And what's nice about it is it makes their rough terrain crane into almost like a mobile, like taxi crane. And
Yeah.
those cranes can lift more, than maybe their all-terrain counterpart. Um,
Right.
so it's very work wise. But just the problem with it is that, you have different manufacturers, and like they've grown less and less comfortable with having other people weld things onto their
Right.
crane.
Yeah.
So that's, one of the hurdles, but we've got a workaround for that. Um, and yeah, it just should be more, you have to work with a person and the manufacturer again, and everybody has to be comfortable with how you're going to clamp on and use it,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. I was trying to think, and of course you would know, but I looked at it, I thought that's such an amazing idea. That why wouldn't everybody do that? But yeah, because if 10 different manufacturers, you've got to rig it out so that it can actually fit on all 10 different and safely and cost
Right.
effective and everything like that, right?
Right. And yeah, one of the arguments is like, well, you could just buy a trailer, and you
Hmm.
can, just
But
depending
this
on
is
what your
cooler.
fleet mix is. Yeah, well, yeah, this is a lot cooler.
Kidding.
But I mean, but if you have a big fleet of RTs, and a lot of people do,
Mm,
in theory, you can buy one system and clamp onto multiple, like some manufacturers will use the same like chassis design for like maybe like 3 models or something. So if you have a
right.
few, you can use the same system for multiple cranes. And RTs typically, when they drive to the job site, they might sit there for a few months. So, it might make sense to put it on like a Schnabel, and in doing so, and cutting out the trailer bed and everything, you
Mm,
lose, a lot of times you lose axles too. So like you don't,
yeah.
like a lot of it takes like a really skilled person to drive like a 9 axle, but then there's like a bunch more people that are able to drive like 5 axles. You know what I mean?
Right. Okay. That's so interesting. I hope well, there's a couple things. I hope it does well for you. And the other thing that I hope it does is that you take some video. So next time you're on the show,
Yeah.
we can actually show it working and doing one of
All right.
those,
That sounds good.
do one of those time lapse so that we can see it getting assembled and everything like that.
Yeah.
Um, I, I want to talk a little bit about, again, going back to that third generation. And I mean, it's not easy in this to enter into the heavy industry market. Even if you've got a good product and you've got good experience, and I mean, there's a lot of challenges associated with it. So for you, what made you want to? What made you go, no, I want to go out on my own, start this company, introduce Schnabels, get the lightest new boom dolly, and do all these things. What's sort of that driving motivation for you?
I've always loved it. I grew up, working at a crane rental business, and that's just, my dad worked a lot and my grandfather worked a lot, and that's, Saturdays we'd go in and, do yard walks. And
Hmm.
I don't know, my brother's a chef. He never wanted to do any of this, so. But it's a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of people, because I am third generation, and I think the crane industry is very much like generations do it, right? You do this because your father your father did it. And that's how, you know, a lot of people join the industry. But for me, it's been a lot of fun because, you know, I'm not doing service, I'm doing manufacturing. So I'm able to travel and talk to people, and everywhere I go, there's a crane company, you know? I mean, even if I'm, you know, on a vacation with friends, it's like, hold on, I want to visit this business and just say hi to them. I've never met them, but I know I have a built-in friend wherever I go.
Do you enjoy that part of it? You know, some people like more the operational side. Some people like the networking side. Some people do not like the networking side. They do it because they have to. For you, do you enjoy it? Like when you walk into a new company, you're in Vancouver and you stop by and see someone you've never met and you try to build that rapport. Do you enjoy that? Is it natural, or have you developed it?
Oh, I love it. I mean, just,
Oh, do you?
especially getting, my favorite is touring other people's yards. Because it's like, in one sense, it's like, we're all so similar, but then it's like, when you do it, you kind of like, you notice things that, you notice things that people do, like little fixes they've done, or maybe in that region, like something different is required. And I learn a lot by walking yards and talking to people. And I'm also more like a visual person. I have to like see it. You know, we sit and we have all these engineering meetings where we're like discussing these concepts. And for me, I'm a lot better if I'm in a yard looking at something. So.
And half time the concept is only half of what it ends up being anyway. So
right, I'll change 4 times.
It's funny you said about walking the yards, you know, and that. And this is, you know, these little personal thing for me is, I'm always, when I go out and like, let's say I meet up with a group of friends for dinner or something, I'm actually not very comfortable. After about 2 or more people, it's just not the most comfortable place for me. But I find with business, I always have a reason to be there. So if I'm at someone's yard, I'm seeing their equipment, or I'm looking at what they do or how they built a company, or figuring out what our need we could fill, the need that we could fill for them. I find it so much more enjoyable, actually. Some people find that stressful. I find it more relaxing to actually have something to do with somebody.
Right. Yeah. Show me that equipment and tell me how that works. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't have to manufacture a friendship. We can talk about this thing that's actually there. When you started it, you know, with that experience, I mean, were there things that just you weren't anticipating being a challenge, or that you saw, oh, I'm sure glad I had that experience from before, because I wouldn't have been able to deal with this? Were there sort of those surprises that came at you from starting your own business like this?
I don't know. I mean, because I've been in the crane industry.
Yeah.
In one way or another. So I think I had a decent idea of what I was getting into, at least, but it has been different, kind of, you know, because I grew up in, you know, as like in a service business, and then, you know, becoming like a manufacturer, it's just kind of a different, you know, it's been a little bit different to kind of transform from one to the other.
Is there anything tangible that you see as a difference, that when you're dealing with a rental, like say it's a crane rental, so that someone's coming and they need a lift, so you do have the right crane? It must be a very different relationship than when you're trying to sell someone a Schnabel system, right? I mean, there must be a completely different set of communication, though, that happens in that setup.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, we sell little things like, just, you know, the little spreader bars, or the, you know, outrigger mats. Like, you know, someone will say, I need a 5x7 outrigger mat. And you're like, okay, here you go. Whereas like, you know, a boom dolly or some of this more sophisticated transportation equipment, you know, there's a lot of questions, and there's a lot of just checking and double checking that kind of goes into it. Because if you miss something, and then somebody just spent all this money on something that can't legally drive anywhere, you know, and when they order them, it's like, you know, they'll order them, and then they'll, you know, be on the water, and they'll like get it all ready. And then since they know it's coming, I mean, they start booking jobs for it like right away. So our timing is like, it's like we have to get there, hook up, and then almost be ready to go. Which is a little bit challenging, you know, because a lot of times, you know, it's like you have a crane in a certain configuration and a dolly in whatever configuration it needs to be. I mean, the same crane might take completely different dollies across the country, depending on where it's being used. And a lot of times, you know, there's no way to test that configuration before you actually put it together, you know, the day before it's supposed to go to some job. So Yeah, it's a little bit
What
challenging.
about what about the team? You know, you built, obviously there's multiple people that you have employed to do that. You know, just, and I mean, there's no doubt about it. There is going to be people watching this episode that have seen, you know, you've started your own company, you have experience, and some people, you know, it's been very consistent with people on our show that they've had experience before. And I would say to people watching the show, take note of that. Be careful jumping into something you don't even know the industry, because someone like you'll be competing against someone like you that you're new, but you understand the industry well, and you're obviously going to be very competitive. But how do now you're leading a team, you're the boss. How do you make sure your team stays motivated, but also make sure your team, you know, the projects are done on time, the communication is with the customer is strong? How do you sort of navigate that while you're still building relationships with new customers, and that there's a lot of moving parts to what you do? How do you navigate through that?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's a lot. I mean, I have a really great operations manager that's been with my family for decades. I mean, he's literally built hundreds of boom dollies. I mean, he was there for like the evolution of, because there's been an evolution of the products too. It's like, you know, you try
Yes.
something and then we were able to, operationally test prove our own products with our own fleet for a long time. And then you learn things and you change it and then you try it again and then you change something else. And so for over the years, we've learned a lot basically. So in order to retain, some of the people that have been with us through that, that's been really helpful. Because normally when it's not a pandemic, I am normally traveling and,
Yeah, it's all
talking to
strange right
people
now,
and
but yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting though, and it's funny because basically you started the company with experience, and then you got someone. You said your operations manager, you said, has even extra experience. So you're essentially building your company from experience. And what would be advice? If someone watching this going, I want to start a company. If you could give them a piece of advice or a warning or a thing to do, I mean, what would it be? Would it be to have your financing in place? Would it be to build the right team, get experience in the industry? Or just for you, what would it be that you'd say, make sure you have a few of these things in place before you make such a big decision to start a company?
Right. I think all of that, what you said, is really important. I think just having a good idea of what it is you want to do, right? And I think any experience you can get, like whether it be working for a company or even just joining the organizations and getting to know people. I mean, it's a small industry and everyone's really friendly, and even though people compete with each other, like everyone
Yeah.
is just very friendly. I mean, I like when I don't understand things, I just ask. I mean, and I'm not
I want to
afraid to
be in
ask.
your industry.
Right. I ask so many dumb questions like all the time. And everyone's, happy to share knowledge. I mean, that's what's nice about it. Is because there are all kinds of new, situations that come up. And just to be able to call somebody and say, how do you deal with this? I
Yeah.
think that's been a huge help to me, is just, being able to talk to people and,
Yeah, I mean, when people are willing to share knowledge, and that's the thing. I think it's so important. I mean, I can't pretty much, I'd say 90% of the decisions we've made over this company over the last year have been a nugget from somebody else. Sometimes it has no idea about our business, but just understands something, a way to communicate or something like that. And I was curious about one other thing. We didn't really talk about this in the pre-interview, so we might not get into it that much, but by the industries that you serve, now you're dealing with the person who's operating the crane. Now, cranes, of course, are operating, like we said, they're municipalities, mining, construction, energy. So generally, are you taking into account the industry they're in, or are they very specific that they need this product or they need it moved? Do you really have to deal with it as from an industry perspective, or is it pretty much straight to the crane user that you're dealing directly?
So, I mean, yeah, we definitely take into consideration, what people are going to be doing with the product. Like for instance, in the boom launch development, that the crane that we're designing that boom launcher for, the two main areas it's being used is, on wind turbine construction
Right.
and tall towers, skyscrapers. So you have two completely different, areas that this product has to work in. Like the same product has to be able to go and traverse through muddy cornfields at the same time it needs to be able to, negotiate the turn like in a very congested city. So we do have to talk to the end user and say, well, how are you going to be using this? If you're going to be launching a crane boom in a field, you have to somehow like level yourself. Whereas, in the city, you won't have that same issue. You're going to have a level ground, but who knows what route you're going to have to take to get to exactly where you need to go, between other traffic and pedestrians and road closures and everything. Yeah. So
I certainly don't want you to call out any of your customers, but do you have any of those customers that they've got the thing that they want where they want to get it to, and you're just like, oh no, come you need that. They just do not realize at all what it's actually going to take. You must have a few of those.
Oh yeah. Everybody wants their cake and they want to eat it too, right? They're like, I want to carry all the weights and get there with, on one axle and just snap my fingers. And
well, it's,
we do our best, but.
No, I mean, and you were recommended, another guest on the show, and I'm always, never quite know if I should call out names and that or not, but you were recommended as a guest because of the work you're doing in the industry. It's a very interesting company because, like I said at the beginning of the show, you fall into this little niche that we have because we've had crane, we just had heavy haul, and now you're the one that sort of connects those two. It's very interesting that it's the timing of having you on the show too. So I'm glad you could come on.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.
And come on again, but next time you'll actually be able to come into our studio.
I would love that.
And and check out Vancouver. So
that too.
I hope you stay safe and healthy and all that. Yeah, I was really hoping your dogs would run into the frame again, but you.
Yeah, no, I hid them. But
I've been waiting and waiting. Well, thank you very much, Krystal, for coming off the show. I'm going to talk to the camera for a second, so you can just ignore me. But thank you for coming on, and I hope you had fun.
Awesome, I did. Thanks a lot. This is great.
Well, thank you for watching the show. It was great to have Krystal on. I've said it a couple of times, but I'll say it again. It's nice kind of filling in the gaps when you do multiple shows in a heavy haul across the heavy haul industry. We're sort of filling out the gaps. So we'll probably put a little series together somewhere on our website so you can kind of watch all three, Nickel Brothers, Lamson, and now TransWorld coming on. So we'll put those together in a little group for you because it'll be quite interesting. And that's on crownsman.com. I'm going to throw it back over to Gowdy to wrap up the show. Thank you very much for watching and stay safe. And if you're watching after COVID, I hope your business is back running strong and prosperous. Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook. You can also listen to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Also, if you are a dedicated fan and watch every episode, or you have a favorite industry that you love to follow and would like to help support the production of The Crownsman Show, then please head on over to crownsman.com/donations. We have set up 2 initial donations or donation options. The first one is the $5 monthly subscription option, and the second is the Support Heavy Industry one-time donation. This is all through PayPal. Again, thank you so much for your support, and you can head on to donate at crownsman.com/donations.